Malaysian authorities filing criminal charges against the bank. It is related to the 1MDB scandal. And joining us now on the CNBC Newsline is Tom Wright. He is a reporter for the Wall Street Journal. He is literally also one of the men who wrote the book on this. The book, as we've talked about on the air, is called The $1 Billion Whale, a man who fooled Wall Street, Hollywood, and the world about this 1MDB scandal. Tom, we appreciate you joining us on short notice. Thank you very much. Are you surprised by criminal charges being filed against Goldman?
Well, yes, I am a little bit surprised by this. Last month, it was announced by the U.S. Department of Justice that there was criminal charges, indictments against Goldman individuals. That's Timothy Leissner, a former partner, and Roger Ng, a former managing director. Now, those two, Leissner has pleaded guilty to misleading the firm and to stealing money and to bribing officials. But this, in Malaysia, is a criminal charge about of the bank. It's of the bank's international arm based in the UK, which was the issuer of the bonds in 2012 and 2013, from which the money was allegedly stolen.
Yeah, and Tom, you know, I've read your book, by the way, and I think it's one of the best business books of a long time, so congratulations on that. And my initial reaction to that on hearing the news coming to work this morning was, this seems more like the Malaysian government's attempt to save face with an angry populace.
Well, of course, Goldman is saying this is misdirected, and it's going to vigorously defend this. And I agree with you. I think what's happening here is a couple of things. One is the Malaysians are looking at what's happening in the U.S., and they think there's going to be a deferred prosecution agreement with the authorities in the U.S. and Goldman, and the Goldman's going to have to pay a civil fine. And I think Malaysia's Attorney General is looking at that and thinking, well, is Malaysia going to get its hand on that money? And, you know, that fine could be sizable, hundreds of millions, even billions of dollars. And so that you could say this is an attempt here for Malaysia to sort of stake its claim. The question is, how enforceable is anything going to be? Because Goldman doesn't have big operations in Malaysia. It has a small securities office with very little business. Most of its business in Asia is run out of Hong Kong and Singapore. So, you know, that's another issue here.
Yeah, and what do you think about the legacies of both Gary Cohn, who obviously left, joined the White House, and now has left the White House, and Lloyd Blankfein? Reading your book, it seemed more like Cohn was sort of driving this. Say, hey, we're getting huge fees. Whatever they're doing over in Malaysia, let them do it. We're getting hundreds of millions in fees. Do you believe whatever happens here, Tom, this will tarnish the legacy of Gary Cohn and potentially Lloyd Blankfein?
Well, I think it's not good for sure. I mean, there was a saying inside Goldman, they called it monetize the state. In the wake of the global financial crisis, these big sovereign wealth funds like 1MDB, from which the money was stolen, they were money pots for Goldman and for other banks because they were doing a lot of business. You know, Goldman was advising on co-investing, they were helping them raise money, and Cohen was a huge force behind that. He went around, he was in Asia quite a lot, pushing that business, and that was seen inside Goldman as a very lucrative thing. Also, Lloyd Blankfein was behind this. He said everyone should do more of what Tim was doing. Tim Leissner is the former partner who has pleaded guilty. So this was definitely seen inside Goldman as a very lucrative line of business, and of course it's all blowing up now.
Yeah, and the one thing that, I'm not defending Goldman Sachs in any way here, but the one thing from your book that I sort of gathered, having friends, by the way, that worked for Goldman in Asia at that time, Leissner was kind of a cowboy. I mean, that I got the sense from your book that he was I don't want to say a rogue employee, but certainly doing his own thing. And management, if anything, was simply guilty of neglecting to manage him a little more. Is that a fair sort of way to characterize it?
I think that's very fair. I think what this has shown is that Goldman's partner structure and its committees that are supposed to stop, you know, to check wrongdoing didn't really work in this case. Leissner was off the reservation. He was living in Los Angeles a lot of the time, where he was dating Kimora Lee Simmons, the reality star and former model, and so he wasn't really around, and he was allowed a very long leash to do this business. Goldman's position here is that Leissner and Ng, they were off the reservation, and they didn't know. Goldman could not have known what they were doing, and Goldman raised this money. It could not have known that it was going to be stolen. But what the Malaysian charges say is they say that there were material omissions in the bond documents. For example, they did not mention that Jolo was the boss of 1MDB. Jolo is the Malaysian financier who allegedly ran this whole scam. And so the Malaysians are saying, well, you know, Goldman, you should have known better, and your former partner Tim Leissner did know. So how come more people didn't know?